So got it. Cool. All right. So a little change of scenery. I'm actually at one of our hotels today, getting some stuff done up here.
Nice.
And just checking in on things. I'm always like, oh, I don't feel like going. And then when I get here, I'm like, this place is freaking awesome. Like, I should come up here more often. But cool, man. Well, why don't you tee us up for what we're gonna be talking about today? I'm gonna set up the chat over here to see if we have any questions, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, for sure. So last week we talked about what is co-hosting, kind of the basics of it. And this week let's dive into a little bit more for the viewers how to find co-hosting opportunities. Co-hosting is a very big topic, because hot topic right now, especially on social media, of it's a zero money down play to get into the Airbnb business and start driving a side income stream. And now when you're starting the business, all right, where do we focus on finding these types of leads? Like, we've got our business structure set up, we're ready to take on new leads. Now, how do we find them?
And I do want to preface it, because I think Heather put a comment on last week. Heather is also another BA, total badass in the space. She does a lot of luxury properties, and I always butcher it, but I think it's somewhere in like Park City maybe, or somewhere like that, like a really cool vacation spot. She does a lot of high-end co-hosting, and she brought up a good point that we didn't talk about last week, is make sure you do your homework too, because some states and some jurisdictions define property management differently. And so if that falls under property management, then some states require you, or some counties require you to have a real estate license. So do a little homework on that. Figure out, if you're signing leases, then that makes you a property manager. Well, okay, then we're not signing leases, so we're good. But if you're accepting money on behalf of somebody, that equates to a property manager. Okay, then maybe you need a license, or you just work on Airbnb and the payouts go directly to the owner and you send them a bill at the end of the month, right? So do a little homework on that. I don't want you guys getting any legal trouble or anything like that, but where there's a will, there's a way. I'll just put it that way. Yeah. So just make sure that you're doing your due diligence, doing your homework, making sure you're good with any local or state regulations around this stuff.
Yeah, don't let that fear stop you.
Yeah, for sure. So getting back to the topic at hand, I think there's really three different buckets, or three different ways to generate leads for a co-hosting business, right? So I think the first one, and this is in no particular order, I'm just rattling these off, okay? So the first one is your network, getting referrals, and we'll dive deep on that in a second. The second is doing cold outreach, and we'll talk about that. And then the third one is building your brand and building like a website that is a lead generator for you, right? So creating your brand, getting on social media, creating a website, giving away free property analyses or whatever to attract leads, having a blog, doing stuff like that, podcasting, local events, whatever it is, okay? And I've used all three personally. So let me break those down one at a time. So I will say the lowest hanging fruit, the lowest hanging fruit is to work your network first, okay? Start with your immediate network, family, friends, loved ones, people in your circle that already know, like, and trust you, okay? They already know, like, and trust you, and that's 90% of the battle initially is, can you prove your credibility to somebody? So if you start with your local network, again, it could be your parents, it could be family members, it could be friends, it could be friends of friends. As long as it's in your local network, and just telling people, hey, this is what I do. If they're involved in real estate or they're looking to get involved in rental properties, show them this opportunity, and you can make it totally turnkey for them. You'll help them design the property. You'll handle creating the listings, all the guest communication, coordinating cleanings, coordinating any maintenance, so that all they have to do is at the end of the month, they get a check or they get a deposit right into their bank account, and it's totally turnkey for them. And you can walk through all the other benefits of working with you, which we've talked about on the podcast and on some of these other episodes. Now, if you don't have anybody in your inner circle, one, I'm going to challenge you to think a little bit more on that, because you probably do, whether you realize it or not. Then it's all about, how do I expand my network? Okay. So when I think about building a network that can give me leads, I want to focus on networking with people involved in the transaction space. So what I mean by that is networking with real estate agents, networking with lenders, networking with insurance brokers, networking with title companies, anybody that is involved in closing a real estate transaction. That's who I want to build a network with, because they're already involved. They're already working with buyers and sellers every single day in their day-to-day business. So whether you work out some type of referral fee or just good business relationship with those people, so finding ways to add value to them and adding value to their clients, that's who I want to focus on building relationships with. Then if I take a step back from that, then I want to start thinking about, if I've exhausted all of those, then I want to start thinking about, how do I start networking with business owners, sales professionals, and other real estate investors? Okay. The reason I start with business owners and sales professionals is because they're already making a good amount of money from their jobs or their businesses, and a lot of them don't want to deviate their focus from those activities, but they love the idea of real estate. They just don't want to learn how to do it. They don't want to deviate their focus to learn how to do it and manage it themselves. They're like, listen, man, I'm making good money doing what I'm doing. I like real estate, but I don't want to manage it. Okay. And I have plenty of clients that fall into that category. That was like my bread and butter. And then working with current real estate investors, that's another great avenue if you go for the right types of investors. And what I mean by that is a lot of, call them the mom and pop investors. There's a lot of like DIYers out there that they'll go out, they'll buy a duplex or a 3-family or single family home. They're used to managing it. They're used to fixing everything themselves. And they like that control, whether they realize it or not. Okay. And so you coming in there and offering to do it, especially at the fees that we charge, it's substantially higher than a regular rental because there's a lot more activity involved. You know, we charge 25%, where a lot of typical property managers charge 10% for long-term rentals. Sometimes that's a hard sell, or it's hard to get them to invest what they need to invest into the furnishings and the updates in the property, because they've been conditioned over time as a long-term buy and hold investor to fix it up to the bare bones of what you need in order to rent it out to maximize your cash flow. With short-term rentals, you need to go above and beyond that to really make the property stand out. So it's a different mindset. So if I'm targeting real estate investors now, I'm looking for people that maybe own property, but also have another business that is taking up their focus, and they just want to be completely passive. And they're just like, listen, man, just go and maximize my returns, take care of my assets. I don't want to be involved. So I don't want to focus on the DIYers. I want to focus more on the higher level, like business owners that like real estate or already own real estate. So there's a big distinction there. Okay. And then beyond that, I mean, you can go down a bunch of different rabbit holes, but that's what I would start with. Family and friends in your inner circle, then people involved in the real estate transaction world, agents, lenders, title companies, attorneys, brokers, like all of those that are already involved in the real estate transaction world. And then business owners and salespeople and current real estate investors. So that's how I would start, with those 3 rings to build your network. And it doesn't happen right away most of the time. Sometimes you get lucky, you meet the right person at the right time. But if you foster those relationships and build genuine relationships and friendships with these people over time, that's going to be a continuous referral basis for you over and over and over again. Okay. The next one is doing, call it cold outreach. Okay. So you go on a site like Zillow or HotPads. I like, because HotPads lets you filter by for rent by owner. So you're looking for investors that have properties that they're trying to rent out themselves, not using a property manager. And you're reaching out to them. Hey, have you ever considered running this property as a short-term rental, right? And you just want to spark some conversation. So you're doing a lot of cold outreach. This works. It takes some thick skin. I'm not going to lie. Right? I got a lot of doors slammed in my face. I got a lot of people hanging up on me on the phone. You know, I tried all different approaches. I talk a lot about that in our programs. Different ways to go about that, but it's totally works, but it's a numbers game, and you got to have some thick skin to just know. But what helped me was I was offering a super valuable service, whether they realized it or not. I was helping them maximize their returns and take way better care of their property than any tenant ever would, period. I had never had a doubt in my mind about that. So when you come from it from that approach, if they're not interested, it's like, okay, cool. You don't take it personally. You don't get angry about it. You don't feel bad about it. It's just neutral. Okay, cool. On to the next one. Okay. So you can do that on Zillow, Hotpads, Craigslist, apartments.com, wherever. Okay. Just going out and looking for properties that are for rent, ideally for rent by owner, and then reaching out to those property owners. Okay. And then the third way, which again is a little bit of a longer game, is to build your brand and your presence. So one of our students in the mastermind, Tristan, he built his website, his co-hosting property management website. And it took him, like a good 6 months maybe?
Mm-hmm.
But he was blogging on it every single week. This is what he knows. Like, he's a web developer, he's an SEO guy, so he understands that game. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on what I know. And he built a really beautiful website that adds a lot of value to people that are interested in getting into short-term rentals. And over time, he started to generate leads from that website. People reaching out through his contact forms, all these different things. But it took a little while, right? He was posting on blogs. He was putting out fresh content on his website constantly and refreshing it and refreshing it and refreshing it. And then eventually he started to get leads. And now he's, I don't know, I think he's at like 9 properties or something. And it's just taken off. But it took some time to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Another way to do it, which I did at the beginning, was I held a local meetup. I think I called it like Airbnb Mastery or something like that a few years ago. And I would post it on meetup.com. I'd post it on Bigger Pockets. I'd post it on my Facebook page, wherever. And the goal was to get as many real estate investors or aspiring real estate investors in the room and let me educate them on the benefits of short-term rentals. Okay. And again, I did this for 5 or 6 months, every single month. And there were a couple months that literally not a single person showed up. 0. It was just me with a pop-up screen and a projector and all this fancy stuff. And it was just me. And was I a little embarrassed? Yeah, I was. But I was like, okay, I'll be back next month. We'll see you guys next month. Thanks for the space. Right. And I just kept doing that. And I got a couple leads out of that. Like I did. Another way is, putting content out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You want to start a podcast? Cool. I get tons of leads from my podcast. But again, it's a long game. I've been doing that close to a year and a half, maybe not quite that long. Definitely well over a year. Every single week, new content, and then chopping it up and putting on YouTube and Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn and everywhere. But it's playing the long game. And so those are really the 3 different ways. And then as you get properties, Mike, I want you to talk about this real quick. As you get properties, then you can work your teams to generate you leads like you did with your cleaners. So why don't you highlight that real quick? Because I think if you have a property or 2 and you have a pretty good relationship with your teams, is another great way to generate leads.
Yeah, for sure. So we had 6 units that we were managing, that we owned before we started getting into co-hosting to scale to hit our goal of 20K a month. So one of the ways that we found leads was talking to our cleaners who also cleaned 40 other Airbnb properties. So we asked them, like, hey, do you guys know anyone that you're cleaning for already that maybe doesn't like managing the Airbnb side or doesn't like managing their operations or is not managing it well, that we could potentially talk to and maybe help them out? Like maybe we can help them implement Smart B&B or Hospitable, or we can help them implement Price Labs or something like that, and just open up a conversation. And then, our cleaners got back to us and said, yeah, we have 15 properties that are on Evolve, which is Evolve is one of the major property management companies that are out there. And Evolve is not good. They're not working for us. They don't handle our Airbnb claims very well. They don't communicate well with the guests. The check-in instructions are not very good. So there's different ways that you can work that network, like you said. Cleaners, let's say anybody else who is really touching the short-term rental industry. I mean, you could even talk to your exterminator when he's over at your house and say, hey, which other houses around here are Airbnbs? The way that we found our first co-hosting opportunity was we actually went to our family and friends and said, hey, we have 6 units on Airbnb now. What we want to do is start managing for other people and helping them out. So we told everybody, hey, we're starting an Airbnb co-hosting business. We're partnering with hosts or investors, landlords, to help 2 to 5x their returns by switching their long-term rentals to short-term rentals. And that was kind of it. That was the whole pitch. And it probably took 6 weeks. I had a buddy who was also an Airbnb host. He called me and said, hey, I've got someone who asked me to host for them, but we're not really into the co-hosting thing. So why don't you talk to him? And that's how we found our first. Our second came to us from our neighbor, from our first property that we listed on Airbnb. So they moved in and they said, hey, do you know a short-term rental, management company? And we said, yeah, absolutely. We do. In fact, we know them really well. And then the third, fourth, and the fifth, which is actually coming with 4 units, all came from real estate agents. So my wife's a real estate agent in North Carolina, and she's building a brand and building the network, and everybody knows that she makes a lot of money on Airbnb. So they're asking her all the time, like, hey, how much would this property make? Hey, how much would this property make? Hey, this property is up for sale. Would it be good for an Airbnb? So just getting out there and networking with real estate agents, I think, can bring in a ton of leads. Even if you have zero experience in this business, if you can network with some of those investors, other landlords, but also real estate agents, insurance agents, mortgage lenders that are really primarily in vacation markets, the leads are endless. We went from 0 to, it's going to be now 8 co-hosting units in what, 6 months, Mike? Well, no, less than that. 5 months when we started telling people that we were doing co-hosting. So the leads are out there. It's getting your brand, stepping out of your comfort zone, telling people what you're doing, and then providing good service too. Like, people tell people the service they're providing and how much money that the hosts are making as well.
100%. And I think one of the things that you said, I do want to highlight, and this is probably the scariest part, is you have to be okay putting yourself out there, whether it's through a website, through social media, picking up the phone, sending emails. It's all about planting seeds, and you have to get out of your comfort zone. I was guilty of this for a long time. And then I just got to the point that I was like, I need to shift my identity. When people ask me what I did, years ago, I would always say, oh, I'm a CPA, right? That was just the default thing that I'd puke out. And then I'd have to consciously stop that and say, I'm a short-term rental investor. And then people are like, what does that mean? Right? Or I'm a professional co-host, or some term that would be like, oh, that's interesting. What is that? And I told everyone, like my boss at work knew what I was doing. Like my coworkers knew, my family, my friends, like everybody knew what I was doing. And that's a huge part of it, that you have to be okay putting yourself out there. It's all planting those seeds. And the more seeds that you plant and nurture and water, guess what? The more leads grow out of that. It's that simple. So be okay putting yourself out there, going out when you're going to networking events. Don't tell people what you do for your day job. Nobody cares. Or you shouldn't care. If this is what you want to focus on, this is what you need to be talking about. So when you're on a Zoom meeting at some meetup or whatever, just put like Mike, the Airbnb guy, or whatever it is. Like I tell my students that if you're on some virtual meetup, change your Zoom name to Mike or Bernie or John, the Airbnb guy, right? Just so people start to associate you with short-term rentals, Airbnb, Vrbo, whatever it is. You want to become known and synonymous with STRs.
Yep.
And the more that you do that, the more leads you will get, the more phone calls you'll get, the more email responses you'll get. It's just the name of the game. It's like any business, but you have to be okay putting yourself out there. Now, whether you love them, hate them, whatever, if you watch that show, what was the show that Grant Cardone did where they dropped them off in like Pueblo, Colorado?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that?
I heard about it.
So it was interesting, right? So
he's a millionaire or something like that.
So the point of the show was they took 3 super successful people and they dropped them off in random locations. They gave them $100 and dropped them off in 3 locations. They took their phones, all their contacts were gone, and they had 90 days to build $1 million business. And it was fascinating to watch Grant Cardone do this. And I don't want to spoil it for you guys. If you want to watch the show, it's really good. So I won't tell you how he did, but he immediately just deposited the $100 or almost gave it away. And he's like, this isn't going to do anything for me. I need people So he just started putting himself out there everywhere, anywhere that he could go to add value. That's what he was doing. I think the first place he went was to some like mattress store. And he went around and asked people, who are the business owners in town? Who are the players in town? And some guy was like, oh, you should go talk to John. He owns a bunch of mattress stores. Cool. He went in there. He's like, hey man, can I work for you for free? I want to help, sell some of your stuff. And if I'm good, cool. You can pay me what you think I'm worth. And he just started building these relationships in town with some of the other players that could help him build whatever business he needed to build. And it was so eye-opening for me because I thought I understood it, but that was the name of the game. He's like, you need contacts. Who's got my money? You need to just put yourself out there over and over and over again. He's out in front of the store flipping signs and stopping traffic and like doing all this crazy stuff. And people are like, who's this weirdo? But who cares? Like, it's what worked. Like, that's what works. You need to get attention and people need to know what you do. If nobody knows you, they can't buy from you. They can't work with you. So you have to put yourself out there over and over and over and over and over again, and be okay with getting some rejection. Like, it's okay. It's totally fine, but you have to be okay with that.
And at first it's going to be weird, but it'll like for me, everybody asked when I joined this new golf club, everybody asked what I did. And I was like, oh, the easy answer is I work for Google. And then I started retraining my brain to say, my wife and I own a business that invests and teaches other people how to invest in real estate, specifically short-term rentals. And the first like 3 or 4 times I said that, it was like, oh, my wife and I, we invest in real estate, but we also teach. It didn't come off the tongue. But the more times I said it, the more other people started talking. The more other people said, hey, would this be good for an Airbnb? Hey, I've got a beach house. Should I rent it out? I help them out. So it's just getting the reps. You're gonna look a little funny at first, but it'll work out. So
yeah. And again, it's and I was the same way when I joined this place. I was like, what do I say? Now when people ask, I'm just like, oh, we work with Airbnbs and boutique hotels. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, well, sometimes we buy them, sometimes we manage them, but we just focus exclusively with real estate investors with Airbnbs and boutique hotels. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. And then, when you're around business people, they're like, oh, I've been thinking about buying a place up at Winnipesaukee or buying a place over here. Like, what do you think about this area or that area, whatever? And then you lead with value, give them advice, help them out. Like one of the people that I reached out to on Craigslist, the very beginning, he was interested in the idea, but he was a DIYer. And he was like, that sounds cool. I want to do it myself. And I could have been like, all right, buddy, good luck. There's no way you're going to do it as good as me or whatever. But I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I totally get it. So here's a couple of pointers. Like, you should do this, this, and this. Okay. And if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. 6 months later, he calls me back, gives me 2 units. He's like, hey man, you're right. Like, it works, but I'm just burnt out. He wasn't using any of the systems that we use and all this other stuff. And he's like, here, will you just do it? So I'm like, okay, cool. So he gave me 2 properties. And he introduced me to 2 other investors that gave me properties, which one of them bought this hotel with me. So again, I led with value and I played the long game. If I got all pissy about it and I was like, all right, man, whatever, that never would have happened. So be okay playing the long game, plant those seeds, add value wherever you can, and just build genuine relationships over and over and over again. And then when you get the opportunity, deliver. Like, I don't do any formal marketing for that business. The only thing that I'm really marketing now is like the coaching side, but I still get lead after lead after lead after lead for the co-hosting, all through referrals, because people are like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about doing short-term rentals. Everybody around me is like, dude, you need to talk to Mike. Like, because they know I've planted enough seeds over and over and over again, and I've got results now to prove it. It's that simple. Initially, you just gotta, that's why at the beginning, the lowest hanging fruit is building those relationships with your inner circle, because they know, like, and trust you. You don't have a track record yet. That's okay, right? I tell the students in the mastermind and accelerator, I'm like, okay, cool. You don't have a track record. Start with family, friends, and loved ones, and then leverage the credibility of the mastermind or the coaching program. Hey, I'm a member of an international mastermind group. There's few hundred of us, we've got thousands of listings. We all follow the same system. We've identified this market because of XYZ, and your property in particular because of XYZ. And then whew, you've got instant credibility, right? So, but if you don't go that route, that's fine. Just leverage whatever you can, business experience, job experience, whatever it is. You just need to show people that you are responsible and that you will take really good care of their property and maximize their returns, and that they can trust you.
Yep. So if you guys want to dive deeper, we got a webinar coming up next week, right?
Yeah, on Wednesday.
Yep.
I think JM got the link set up. It should be, well, actually, let me just check that. I didn't check it today. I was catching up on some stuff. Yep. Go to strsecrets.com/webinar. I'll throw that in the chat real quick. So it'll be next Wednesday. Mike may or may not be on, depending if the baby arrives, but I will be on there for sure. And we'll be doing a deep dive and covering some of these topics around co-hosting, and then going through the tech stack that you need and all the automation and everything else, and how to find these properties and what makes a good market, what types of people can you serve, and breaking all that stuff down in a very step-by-step way to help you launch, automate, and then scale a short-term rental business. So that'll be next Wednesday. Link is in the chat, strsecrets.com/webinar. You can register, it's totally free. And we'll have some fun. I think last time we had about 100 people on, and it was a good time. So
yeah, we'll have to beat that number this coming time. So
yeah, I actually paid Zoom a little bit more money so we can have more people. So I think I upped it to 500 because I think it capped out a few people, which again, we tell you guys like sign up and show up early because otherwise you get locked out, but I upped it. So share it, jump on, share it. Anybody that you know that's interested in this, have them come on. It's totally free. Like, it's completely free, and it's a really good primer for you to start to understand what you need to do to build this business.
Yeah.
So anything else, Mike, before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's good. Guys, get yourself out there, tell people what you want to do and what you are doing, and the leads will flow. They'll start flowing.
That's it. That's it.
Just like
Awesome,
the drinks
buddy.
tonight at the Rockport.
That's it. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to get a massage tonight. I'm out of here. So
nice.
all right, everybody. Thanks again for showing up, playing full out. Appreciate all you guys. If you have questions, post them down in the comments below. And hopefully we'll see you guys next week on Mindset Monday, Tuesdays with Mike and Mike. But most importantly, get on the webinar, because that's a chance for us to spend, an hour and 15, hour and a half together to really dive deep on this stuff and give you a framework step by step to actually do this stuff. So that's it. Awesome, buddy. Appreciate you, Mike. See everybody next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.